You know, hearing is truly a gift from God, but I find it interesting, an interesting gift because it's one that we tend to take for granted, and other times I think we use it in completely different ways. Like, for example, sometimes we hear, but we wish we actually couldn't. Been there, done that. Other times, though, we hear, but we really don't quite get the message. Yep, not what she was saying. Still other times, though, we hear, but we don't actually listen.
Don't do it, Papa. Let me hear you. Papa.
It's okay.
Should have listened. And then, rarely, very rarely, do we actually attentively listen and obey.
Afternoon, everyone. Out on the hill with the team. Been a really busy week. Working, picking up and training. So day off for the team today, so just gonna go play.
Oh, aren't they some good boys? Yes, they are. That, my friends, though, is the exception, not the rule. If I asked your friends and family, do you think they would say that you're a good listener? I think that most of us would like to claim the title of being a good listener. I mean, who doesn't want to be thought of as a good listener? But if I switched up the question and asked instead for you to name some good listeners in your life, how many people could you come up with right off the bat? Certainly not everybody. What do you think, one or two? I find that most of us, myself included, tend to think of ourselves as being better listeners than we actually are. How does one really know whether or not they're a good listener to begin with? Well, you are in luck, my friend, because there's actually a litmus test for it, and that test is found in the book of James. So here's the deal. If you want to determine if you're a good listener, or if you would like to learn how to become a better listener, I've got a couple of short verses that can make it happen. That is, as long as you're willing to listen. Oh, yeah, I got you there, didn't I? Yes. See, godly listening is good listening. And that's the kind of listening that we really need to learn. So are you ready? If you are, we're going to find ourselves in the book of James, chapter 1, and we're going to read verse 19, which says, "My dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen." And right now you're thinking, oh, wow! I mean, I never thought of that before. If I want to be a good listener, I've got to listen. Yeah, no, you're not listening, because the verse said you have to be quick to listen, which is step one, quick to listen. What does quick to listen mean? Because it's different from just regular listening. And I think the easiest way to break it down is to break the differences down between hearing and listening. Because there is hearing and there is listening. And to be honest, most of us are good at hearing. But lots of times we hear without truly listening. You see, hearing means you hear the words that were spoken. Listening means that you not only hear the words, but that you're actually actively listening. That's why he uses an active descriptive word like quick. He wants you to know that you have to be really hands-on. This is something that you need to put effort into. It's more than just hearing. It's purposefully listening for the emotions behind the words. See, when people speak, it's not just the words themselves that have meaning. It's the words behind the words. Why are they saying what they're saying? It's listening to the person's reason, their motivation for speaking. It's doing so many more things. It's listening for the truth that's found behind the words, even if the words themselves aren't perfect. There's so much more that goes into active listening than just hearing the words themselves. And that's why James says quick to listen, because listening is meant to be a very active process. Listening should take time and effort and concentration. And if you're not putting any effort into hearing the words that someone else is speaking, then you're just hearing and you're not listening. And if I'm being honest, like, sometimes I don't think I'm even good at hearing, let alone actively listening. You know what I'm saying? Have you ever had somebody tell you something while your mind was a little preoccupied, and then they began to walk away, and you suddenly realize that you have no idea whatsoever what they said, and you hope to God that it wasn't important? Has that ever happened to you? Have you ever told somebody something and then they can't even remember having that conversation with you at all? Yeah. As a people, we aren't great at hearing, let alone listening. And man, when you choose to not listen, that can get you into some big hot water. I remember, it was a while ago, last year, I don't know how many years ago, Caleb was potty training. So that's a couple. I mean, he's only 20 now. But he was in the middle of potty training. I'll have to see if Caleb remembers that or not. But I needed to pick some stuff up for the church at Staples. So Caleb and I went for a trip into Butler, and I'm driving down 422, and we're almost there when he tells me that he has to go pee. And I tell him, okay, buddy, just wait until we get to the store. So we get to Staples, we run inside, we go to the furthest corner of the store, because they always try to make the bathroom as humanly far away from the doors as possible, because those sadists love to see you do the I gotta go dance the whole way to the back. So we make it to the back, Caleb does his thing, we come out, we start shopping. Well, I've got a bunch of things that I need to buy on that day, so I'm walking him all around the store, and you can tell that he's getting kind of restless, because there's nothing for a 2-year-old to do in Staples. So he's climbing on the racking, he's pulling the price tag off the shelves, so you can tell he's just very bored at this moment in time. So Caleb looks up at me, and he says, "Poop." And I say, "You don't have to go poop, we just came from the bathroom." And he says, "Poop." And I said, "Let Daddy pick out these folders, and then we'll go to the bathroom again, okay?" So Caleb goes back to trying to rearrange the price tags, and a little bit later he comes back over and says loudly, "Big poop." And I thought, that's all I need in the middle of Staples is for my kid to be shouting "big poop" at me. They're going to think that's my nickname or something. So we walk the whole way back over to the other side of the store, and we go to the bathroom. I take him in, I pull his training pants down, and that's when I realized what he was trying to tell me. He wasn't trying to tell me he needed to take a big poop. He was telling me that he had already taken a big poop. And I've always been amazed with just how much waste can come out of such a little person. So I started to clean him up. I picked him up. I sat him down on the toilet. And this is when I made a startling discovery. As I was cleaning him, I looked down and noticed that he had some poop on the bottom of his shoe. And the wheels started spinning in my head, and I realized that this meant that not only had he pooped his pants, but some of it had fallen out of his pant leg somewhere in the store, and not only had he fallen out, but he had also stepped in it. So I go into overdrive as fast as I can. I clean him up. I grab a bunch of paper towels. I walk back out and try to track down, figuring I'm just going to try to track down this little present that he left for some Staples employee. I worked retail for years, and I felt strongly that this is something they should not have to deal with, or if they had to, would not take kindly to. And when I stepped outside of the door, do you know who was standing there outside the bathroom? The store manager of Staples. And I'm pretty sure that I let out a surprised girly yell. "Ah!" I thought to myself, ooh, this is going to be an interesting conversation. But as he moved out of my way so I could get by, I realized he wasn't there to yell at me. He was simply there to use the restroom. But my pleasure was short-lived, because to my horror, I looked down and noticed that a mere 2 feet away from the manager is the first evidence that Caleb had been this way. So I smiled, and I said, "Hi." And then I bent down next to him and picked it up before he accidentally stepped in it. And I gave an awkward laugh. And the manager just looks at me like, "Was that what I think it was?" So I walked out of the hallway, and I think, I better hurry up and find this before anybody else does. The good part and the bad part at the same time was that it was not hard to retrace our steps. Caleb had left a better trail to follow than Hansel and Gretel on the way to the gingerbread house, if you know what I mean. Walking around Staples with paper towels cleaning up squished-in doo-doo was one of the most humiliating and embarrassing things I've ever had to do. And I've had to do a lot of embarrassing things. But the whole point of the story is, do you know why I had to suffer this punishment? It's because I was hearing but not listening. I was not quick to listen. I didn't take the time to invest in that moment and figure out what was actually going on. I just thought I had it all figured out in my head. Doesn't that kind of give us a summary of our lives? I mean, seriously, how many spouses would say that their husband or wife just doesn't listen? How many parents would say this about their kids? How many kids would say this about their parents? How many friends, how many coworkers, how many family members hear but don't listen? How many times do you think you are hearing but not listening? I feel like we live in a society right now where nobody is listening to anybody anymore. I mean, think about it. We don't dialogue, we don't debate, we don't discuss. And I think one of the biggest reasons that we don't actually get to have conversations, especially about differences today, is because we refuse to shut up long enough to hear what anybody else is saying. Yeah, I told you last week, if you watch a sermon, that I feel like we're all in search for the next thing to be angry about. So most of the time, when somebody is trying to speak to us, if we have a disagreement with them in our mind, they don't even get to finish their idea before we start running off at the mouth. And that brings us to the second component of godly listening. Let's jump back into verse 19. My dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak. Slow to speak. So many times we truly don't listen because we are too busy planning out our response even before the person finishes their idea. There is nothing more frustrating than someone who starts talking before the first person is done speaking. I could overhear a complete stranger do this. And even with a complete stranger, I just want to walk over and be like, smack, smack. Now shut your face and pay attention. I mean, seriously. How much do you have to love your own voice to not be able to wait until after they are done? How big is your head that you think your words matter more than theirs do? Listen to me. You cannot be quick to listen unless you are slow to speak. Your brain cannot process everything that it needs to process about what someone is saying if you are beginning to formulate your response before they even finish. Do you understand? Don't you answer. You just listen to me. And what's it come down to? Well, for me, it comes down to love. And I think almost everything does, because Jesus thought it did. See, the question that is always asked anytime someone is speaking is, do you love the person speaking enough to be willing to put everything else to the side for that moment and truly listen? This is a question that you have to ask every single time someone is speaking to you. Do you love them enough to be willing to put everything else to the side for that moment and truly listen? And that's talking about everything going on up in here, but also everything going on all around here. Do you love them enough to put down the phone, to turn off the TV, to turn down the radio, to put your opinion on hold, to stop multitasking, to look them in the eyes and really listen? Have you ever been talking to someone who was listening while they were looking at their cell phone at the same time? Wait, what? Yeah. This is what it's like every time you refuse to actively listen and be slow to speak. Whether a cell phone's in your hand or not, that's your mentality. And if we would just put a little bit of time and effort into those first two components, then the third component would come almost naturally. Verse 19, once again, my dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. And I want you to notice here that it says slow to become angry. See, people have mistaken anger with sin. God's angry in the Bible a lot, but that is righteous anger. You have to understand that there is a time and place to be angry, but it's usually not the time and place that we're getting angry about. See, when you love someone enough to stop everything else that you're mentally doing and listening to what they're saying, and then you're slow to speak, waiting for the right moment to respond, having collected all of your thoughts, you will then naturally become slow to become angry. And that's number 3. Quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. Why would being quick to listen and slow to speak make us less likely to become angry? Well, it's because most of the anger that we wind up having is because we didn't take the time to listen, to slow our thoughts down, and especially to hold back our speech for a moment or two. Think of how much better your life would be, how many fewer arguments there would be. How many less times you would have your foot hanging out of your mouth if you would just stop, focus, listen, and not respond immediately. I mean, seriously, think about it. If we would just listen, if we would actually listen, we would hear the hurt behind the words that the person is speaking. We'd be more likely to see the confusion or the misunderstanding that's taking place in their mind right now. We would choose not to needlessly escalate a conversation that doesn't have to go there. We would actually place the needs of someone else above our own. We would love and receive love in return. But why? Why should we be holding back this anger? If you said not all anger is bad anger, why should we be holding it back? I mean, everybody else is doing it, right? I'm just giving them back what they gave to me. Oh. Let's read verse 20. Verse 20. Here's why. Because human anger does not produce the righteousness that God desires. You see, in most circumstances, when you're getting angry because someone has disagreed with you or stepped on your toes, your anger is actually breeding self-righteousness, not God's righteousness. And when you breed self-righteousness instead of God's righteousness, then God's righteousness loses a pathway to their heart. Do you get what I'm saying? Have you ever not listened, spoken quickly, got angry, and then the person that you're talking to has really changed because of your words? Has that ever happened to you? Not listened, spoke quickly, got angry, and they were like, "Oh, thank you. Now that you said that, I'll never ever do that again." Yeah, that's not the way that it works. Why? Because the Holy Spirit has a much harder time getting to a person's heart if you don't shut your mouth. Yeah. So let me ask you, are you a good listener? How do you know? Well, simply tell me. Are you quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry? What do you think? Think you got some work to do? I know I do. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Take care. God bless. Hope to see you soon.